Go.
Hi guys, and welcome back to Devil's Advocate. Picking up from where we left off, we were talking about the indigenous peoples and different countries, and we were talking about Australia. So, yeah, speaking of sort of losing that indigenous culture, or not really losing it, but having it more westernized. I think that's more of the route that I'm going to. Like, there's still indigenous peoples there, but when the British came, sort of made them learn English and made them learn their ways of living and all that jazz, right? So yeah, a lot of cultures sort of died with that, or
Well,
sort of what
some
were
of
washed a bit
them
more
did.
washed out.
Some
Yeah,
of them did, especially the Aborigines. I think they were given a really hard deal because they didn't have the monarchy involved. And
yeah,
delve into that. We'll be going on to that a little deeper in a minute. But the Maori themselves, and I believe this is the one for my Maori down in New Zealand, they were
yeah.
a very organized indigenous group of people. Now, I'm not quite sure of the intricate details. I still have to do more research on this. But their deal was a lot better than what anybody else got. So they can't be infringed upon. They were just more well organized. They weren't like the First Nations or of America, for example, who were selling off Manhattan for a bunch of beads,
Yeah.
or they didn't have the Aboriginal problems whereby it wasn't of the monarchy, it wasn't done under the name of the king or the monarchy, and they had no treaties that were signed. It was just the military that moved in and dumped a bunch of European or British, mainly prisoners, became prison island, you know. So and Canada is always more interesting in the fact that they did have treaties, but the treaties are all with the British monarch, not with the
Mm.
Canadian government that came out as a result of them moving here. So, yeah, I mean, going on to all of those things, it's just, I mean, let's go, for example, here.
Yes.
Now, I'm not quite sure if any of those emblems and symbols are of a specific tribe. I am too ignorant of the topic to discuss.
So am I. I wish I could be one of those people that say, "Oh yes, that's the tribe of the blah 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 plains and the this and that." But like I said, I'm just quite ignorant to native culture within myself because, like I said, growing up in England, it wasn't something that we learnt about. It wasn't something that we studied. In
And
that
you
sense,
you call
yeah.
us being of mixed First Nations and British, you call yourself what, Metis? Am I correct?
Um. Well, I just sort of refer to myself as a Anishinaabe, and that's sort of the general sort of term for it.
What,
Um,
for Ojibwe or Metis?
yeah, so Ojibwe. So yeah, my reservation, if you will, is based on Manitoulin Island. We are with Wikwemacon. So yeah, and there's lots of like so many different native bands. So we've got Wikwemacon, Metis, or whatever. There's just so many, and it's very specific to that sort of region. You've even got like the Inuit, however you pronounce it, there's so many more influences we're seeing of native descent, which is really delightful to see actually. And we're seeing a lot more representation in the media, and they're using it in a good way. They're using it in a positive way, like I'm missing Indigenous Peoples Day, Orange Shirt Day, for the missing and murdered Indigenous children in residential schools. So there's a lot more positive movements, and some people, they kind of go like that, like, I don't want to hear about it, I take no responsibility for it. But you've got some people of native descent who are like, no, we need this day, we need to be aware of our culture and our history and what this day really means. There's even battles, between people. Like, sometimes I'm like, I want to celebrate Canada Day, and then sometimes I see things like, oh, genocide, rape, pillaging, and I'm like, oh, maybe I don't want to celebrate Canada Day. So I'm always like on the fence with, do I go over here more, do I go over
I
there
suppose,
more, like.
yeah, I get you, because I'm a bit torn.
Yeah.
Being British,
Yes.
I epitomize everything that everybody hates about the British nation for whatever
Yeah.
reason. Um, but at the same time, I realize that they've separated us from the rest of the history that Britain has to offer.
Yes.
Whether
Yes.
we like it or not, as Brits, it is our history, and it
Yeah.
did spread across the world. We had India, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, South Africa, and that's just naming a few of them. I mean, they went everywhere.
Pretty much,
I mean, they said
and
the sun
that
never
was
set
it.
on this. So kind of
Yeah.
like around the globe, there they were. But what I find very interesting, I'm going to go back to what's behind me here. In this particular area, we can see where the treaties have all been signed. And this is all your treaty queryable areas, because queryable, that sounds terrible, that word. As in you can question it. They've got all these sort of, they're all with the monarchy and not with the government, which means essentially the government of Canada cannot be allowed to run roughshod over these particular. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Yes.
This wasn't done with it wasn't done with the British government. It wasn't done with the Canadian government. It was done with the monarchy under Queen Victoria, I think, if I'm correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you take a look at these. To them, this is still their land.
Yes.
And
yes.
this, now, I know that as far as British politics is concerned, our monarchy has got to keep its little dirty nose out of there. Well, it's got to not make its nose dirty in that mud pool that we call our politics in Britain right now. But they don't have that same limitation in Canada.
Yes.
I mean, they do with the Canadian government, but since the Canadian government has no dealings with treaties, my theory is that the monarchy should be involved. Maybe only in Canada, because that's only where these treaties really exist and still stand today.
Yes.
This is a point where they should be able to come in and say, you're a Canadian government, you can't do this. I'm not quite sure how it works. Plain honesty here. I don't know what the intricate details are for all of this. But I would imagine, you can't actually have them dealing with people who didn't do their deals with them.
True. Yeah. I think it's still interesting, when you sort of speak of those treaties and those lands, there's we call it the reservation, and for those viewers who are from different countries and who are watching this, reservation was basically a small bit of land that the British or whoever was conquering at the time said, here's your land, but you can live on this small section of that land.
Well,
so that's kind of
I don't think it. Within the British monarchy, what they said is they could, the First Nations would get anything that was unsettled. And when the government came in to start doing things, they started settling on what was treatized land.
Yeah.
Is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
This is the learning that we're still doing for many of us who don't go and get our degrees in British rampaging across the world. And we've also got to remember that, granted, you've got a lot of dead people from the residential schools.
Yes.
There's all of that they've got to sort out. But a lot of but that was, again, Canadian government following American government, not British, not a monarchy. They chose to follow somebody outside of their remit.
Yeah.
It was definitely an American import, residential schools.
Definitely.
And the church itself, this is where, again, while it was British, it was the church. And again, the church in England is attached to the monarchy. But at the same time, which one of these churches and residential schools did it? Was it the C of E or the Anglican Church, or was it just the Catholic residential schools? That I don't know yet either.
Yeah.
Because if it was the Catholic residential schools, that came from the French. British are not Catholic. They did not bring Catholicism to Canada.
And that's it's a very touchy subject for a lot of people, because you're right, it's religion. It was like,
it was religion. It wasn't the monarchy. It wasn't even government. The government might have said, yes, it's a good idea,
Yeah.
They weren't actually in good, and they made sure people sent people there, but
Yeah.
they literally had no oversight, no control of it whatsoever.
Yeah.
So
And
literally, I mean, literally, it is the Catholic Church, if it's only the Catholic Church that did this, that then has to do the apologizing. They're the ones that have to do that for the residential school.
mm-hmm.
So that's what
Mm-hmm.
it is. And by rights, if the C of E or the Anglican Church from Britain did the same thing and killed children and they ended up dead or sodomized or whatever the case might be, then that needs to be dealt with again by the monarchy. The only problem that comes now is all the missing people we've got now, because that's literally got nothing to do with anything, especially British, because that's now, the Brits have long gone.
Yes.
As far as that goes, that is something that seems to be a little unique. And on that point, we're probably going to have to sign off here as well.
Yes.
Come to the end
So
of this particular one. So moving forward, there's going to be a lot more questioning and a lot more people to interview. This is just the
yes,
start.
this is just a
This
start.
is to show how much we don't know.
This is the very, very, very beginning of it all, you know, as we dive down into
We're
this
diving
abyss of
into basically the Canadian treaties. We just wanted to highlight the differences between all the colonizations around the world. They are not all the same. They are not all equal.
Yes.
And we need to deal with them separately and individually.
Absolutely.
So on that note, we'll sign off here for these 2 episodes of Devil's Advocate. Please do, pardon me, oops, like and subscribe. You know, my
like, subscribe, share,
my slider
tell your friends,
never
your
worked.
family.
Never worked.
And
so I have to do everything by hand.
That's okay. And we will try, well, I guess we've been more focused on our Tea and Taboos channel, but we will be shedding more light on these Devil's Advocate episodes with more material for you
certainly in the
guys
next
down the
few
road.
months.
Absolutely.
We'll get back to the other one in November.
Yes. Thank you
very
so much
for
guys.
joining us.
And have a great day.
Have a wonderful day. Bye.